Okay. All right. Hello. This is Mike Cornwell. This is John Trimble, and this is Catch the Vision. Know what we're talking about today? No?
You're going to kick off.
Yeah. What we wanted to talk about today was the importance of serving others and what that means actually for leadership itself. The truth being that the nature of being a servant is actually kind of the core of leadership. And there's a lot of different elements that can be unpacked on this. And, you know, one of them that comes kind of quickly to mind that kind of starts to bring this together is the setting the example. And so it's super important to understand that people follow the example, especially of the person that they think is more equipped or understands better the way, like where to go and what to do. And so by setting by the setting of the example happening, the servant, by being a servant as a leader, it actually allows the person who is following to actually do things. And so they won't do things unless they know that the leader is actually serving them. That's like a core component to it. It's not optional. And we had this, to kind of finish this little thing off, but we had this sermon yesterday of kind of on the purpose of serving. And one of the things that I thought was really good was the understanding that it is not a normal thing that people want to do, and that it's often not easy. And that is the true situation. So that's what we're going to chat about today.
One of the things that we used to talk about in leadership principles and practices, which is kind of what we talked about in the beginning, was that one of the things that our professor said was that nobody hates or rejects a servant. Somebody comes, they're going to cross your feet, they're going to serve you, get you a cup of... No one says, you can't serve me. I mean, rarely do you see somebody, you can't serve me. And so servant leadership is much more received and much more effective than I'm the boss, you do what I say, and the story. It's not that kind of leadership. Even Jesus said, like the Gentiles, it will not be with you. A servant's not greater than his Lord. I'm here to serve you. You're out there to serve others. And that makes a huge difference. And I like what you said. It allows them to do things, others to serve as well, and
that's right.
Reciprocate as well. And that's good.
I mean, the way, and I know somewhat of our, leadership perspective or something is slightly different. But for me, just the understanding of what the elements are, in just their most raw state, the purpose of a leader is to cause action in other people, and not just any action or random action, but specific actions in a particular direction. And so in order to get people to do that, there's certain elements that have to be in play, that have to be going on. And if you're not doing the servant thing, they can't serve the vision.
Right.
So, I mean, it's kind of really that simple, but the sermon yesterday is very true. It is not easy, because
it's a life of service. It's not.
It is.
It's not. I got the goods. I got it all. You pay attention. It's not that kind of thing. It's this guy cares about me. This guy does things.
Yeah, that's right.
As an example that I hear what he's saying because he's serving me. And I mean, you can reject a leader, but it's hard to reject a servant. You just naturally don't. Oh, you're going to help me. Thank you. You kind of are thankful, and you're much more receptive.
I think we are actually very hardwired. The fact that I've done a bunch of like a course on this, and it kind of came to me when I was working through it that it's like, it would not be possible that people could be influenced unless it was the case that we were hardwired to listen and respond to somebody who is serving us.
Yeah.
Like period. Who has you have a reasonable belief that they are actually trying to help you. All of a sudden, the more that you have that belief, the more that you're going to listen to what they have to say, the more that you might take the advice, to do the things, etc. It's that continual reproving of that point that's what it is. And sometimes it's not easy because some of the things that you want them to do or believe and these kind of stuff are very counter to what they're doing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, some of the servant leaders I served under, I wanted to, we call about catch the vision. And I talked about, you got to catch it. It can't be taught. It's got to be caught. I wanted to catch it because of the servant leadership, not because it dawned on me in my intellect, but because I had an example, and I said, I want to catch that too. I get it.
Oh yeah.
I get it. So let me try to catch where he's going, what he's doing, and that does make a difference. I mean, that anybody can reject an intellect jerk that thinks he knows everything. Anybody can reject that. But the rejective servant, you got to have problems. There's something wrong with you if you don't.
It's so interesting too, because this doesn't have to be like some extreme, like to take and understand this. It doesn't have to be like some extreme example. In fact, very minor examples are one of the ones that I really try to point out to people because they just overlook them. And I'll never forget the first job that I kind of. Wasn't really my first job, is I guess my second job, but my first job in like IT, and I was going for the interview, and the first person who interviewed me was like, I don't know, a technical manager or something like that, and so he's like trying to grill me on whether I know all this stuff, and I never had a programming job before, so I don't really know anything. I read a bunch of books, and I was super motivated about going and switching and doing this stuff. And so after I more or less flunked that, then the owner of the company came in and, interviewed me, and he had a very different disposition. He was like very kind of like charismatic and stuff. And years later, I went and I sat in his office. I mean, like 15 years later, I went and sat in his office. And I was telling him about my leadership book and that his name is in it. And many of the things that I had put in there had actually come from him. And the more strange part about it was not that he was in the book or any of this kind of stuff, but how few interactions I had actually had with this person. And it made such an impact that like 10 plus years later, I'm writing a leadership book and his name kind of keeps coming up in my mind as I'm doing this stuff. And so I brought this up to him. And I started mentioning this, and I could just start to see him like lighting up that I might have been the first person who had actually caught him that he was doing a thing intentionally. He was intentionally doing leadership to build his company. And one of the things I brought up was kind of like this interview thing. And I don't know if he knew about that specific interview, but he has had that experience so many times now. He's like, you got to understand, when you go in that interview, like you have to create the vision for that person and help them jump into those shoes. So you have to have this non-rational belief about where they can actually be and see them as that now, and then they'll rise to the occasion. And I was like, mind blown. Right. And so the truth is what he did was he actually created a vision and helped the person walk into it. He didn't see, and I don't really, knowing him enough and enough of the conversation, it was not I know in that person that they're going to be there. It was just oh yeah, you're going to be this really good person at this job. Like you get what I mean? Like it's not like some massive magical powers he had. It's just a literal memorization type thing he does that they see themselves here. It would be nice if they're up here. So why don't I just pretend like they're up here and you're going to be really good at that. And all of a sudden people start to jump to that. So instead of seeing where somebody is, you see where they can be and you kind of help guide them along the path on that. And what it does for that person is it builds like their confidence and this and all that. And to some extent, they think that they're the ones that actually obtained it. To some extent they did, but they kind of had this massive helping hand that said, you're going to be up here.
Well, I think another reason why they think that when you do it that way is it's not rule oriented. It's not just rules.
Oh no,
it's not a whole bunch of a list of do's and don'ts, and it's a whole different trip. You're in a vein that's totally different.
That totally different
is accepting what this guy is saying, and wanting to get somewhere. Rules and do's and don'ts don't get it.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with like, you're applying for a level 1 job. Someday you'll be at level 3.
Yeah,
like that's just not.
That doesn't
that doesn't motivate anybody.
Yeah, it's a different vein, and we talked earlier when we first started the lack of leadership just in this area, just everywhere in this region. There is a form of leadership. We can see that form. You can call it Baptist, Methodist. You can call it whatever you want in the religion names or whatever.
Yeah.
But really, we feel the lack of visionaries. You're really talking about a visionary that's looking at you and saying, I can see you here or there, and let me explain some of that for you. And so you can kind of lock in and engage in that. That takes a visionary. He's able to see, he's able to see, and that's one thing I've read so many times and spoken on so many times. Without a vision, the people dwell without restraint. I know that's what it says in King James, but it really means if they don't really see it, they don't really engage themselves with discipline to get there. They just kind of hang.
Yes.
And you can't just hang if you see it, because
that's right.
Hey, I see that. How am I going to get there? But
one of the things he's trying to do, and I agree with everything he's saying. I am going to sort of backtrack that a little bit just for that specific example, because I don't want people to leave here thinking that when I hear the word visionary, that sounds really highfalutin. And I don't know, you got to be born as a visionary or something. This guy was not born as a visionary. He just made the crap up. He just said it, because that's, think about it from like a nature of a job. You want that person to be really good at their job. So just, what is like the magical place that, and we're talking anyone, forget about me or anybody who's in the seat. He does it for every single person who shows up.
Yeah.
Because that's a personal experience you're having. You're not with like a bunch of other people.
He's still a visionary though. He is a visionary.
So that's fine. I just
because
don't want
he sees something that he wants to have take place, even if it's just to be good at that job. That's the vision.
Yeah, it's fine. Well, I guess my, getting in the nuance there, he didn't see that in me. He just wanted that thing and just was applying it to me, and just by dumb random chance, I took on it. For some people, it's not gonna that spell's not gonna work.
Yeah,
but I don't necessarily believe
dumb random chances.
Yeah, like a dumb random chance. Like that's why it's important to understand, because we don't know. Like it's just like kind of the magic of the Bible. You don't know when or where these things are gonna hit, but for some people they're gonna hit. So for that experience, when he does an interview, he's not interviewing for the purposes, and this is why the guy's good. Like he's really good. He's not interviewing the person to be like, let's see if this person's a perfect fit for my company and that they know and they're gonna be an asset. He doesn't care about any of that crap. He's just going like, they're either gonna be up here, and I'm just gonna pretend like they're gonna be up here. And it's just like a dumb, he's just doing an action, and I'm either gonna fall into it or not. Well, but he gets the result because that's happening.
What you said, and we're going to see him in that area, not just starting out or not fitting the bill.
Yes, that's right.
We're going to see him in that area.
That's right.
Really
that's what
powerful, because
a
lot of leaders don't see you anywhere. They just want to expound or shoot their mouth off. No offense, but and then the people are just really getting educated, not motivated. It's nice to hear that. I didn't hear that before. Thank you. Leave a little bit more educated, but not really motivated, because no one's showing them or telling them where they really. It's kind of like who you are in Christ and who Christ is in you is huge, but very few can articulate that so that you can say, that's just not education. There's something there. I want to connect to that. So that's how I see it. I mean, the guy, he may not be a visionary, but visionaries are seeing you in a certain light, and saying, I'm going to help you get there.
I think there's no doubt that people can, and I don't know if you're born with it or what, or certain kind of people can see, I see where this person is going. They don't know where they're going, but I see where they're going. So I'm going to go ahead and put them there and just kind of make sure that they're kind of floating along the path. But I don't think one has to do that. If you know that that's the case, if you're bringing on somebody for any kind of role, you should always be, this is like the importance of having that ideal in your mind of what the thing is to be so that somebody can gravitate towards it, and having clarity of it, kind of like what you were saying, so that, you know, if you can see it, then you can be it. Because if you can't see it, then you can't be it.
Okay, you got to see it. And, you know, this is another problem that we have in our society and in this realm here, especially this region, or not just this region, it's all over. I mean, I came down from New York State, and it's out there too, is we have 30 leaders. You only get one visionary out of the whole bunch. My professor used to teach on history, and he said there was one or two point men that they call them point men.
Yeah.
They're out front, and they're pointing the way, and they're leading the way, but there's very few else that are pointing anywhere. And so every once in a while, you bump into a guy that's a point man, you catch his vision, and you go with him, but there's nobody else. And so you're so used to seeing 29 guys that don't have vision, that aren't visionaries, that don't see you in a certain thing or see you in a certain light. And so you get used to being educated. We used to call it edumacated, instead of motivated, instead of, hey, there's something about this guy. And so I think that's the unique thing in this day and age. They used to say that one of the ways the devil mixes up things and messes things up is he floods it with all kinds of fake, or doesn't come up to standards. So we just kind of, well, that's all we got. You know, that's what we got. Oh well.
Yeah.
And then when a guy really does come anointed and led of God and got something, we're astounded. And maybe a bunch will go with him because they've never heard. They even said this of Jesus. Never have we ever seen a man speak like this.
Yeah.
And so they were captivated. They were not only captivated by his vision, they were motivated. And I think that's really, to see me. I remember when I first started out, the encouraging words are the ones that I remember. The people that said,
that's the point. That's the thing I'm saying. That was the whole.
Those are the ones that we grip onto.
He only had done, like, I swear, like 4 or 5 things the entire time that I knew that guy, and it was enough that he made the top of the book. I mean, that says a lot. And I've known a lot of people doing a lot of different kind of stuff. And so I asked the question, why, in general, why do these certain people stick out in my mind? And I was like, because they are doing something fundamentally different than everybody else.
And we're not used to it.
No, we're not used to it.
We don't have many of those leaders out there. And that's what we're saying. I mean, when we first started this, lack of leadership, and that's what we were really saying. Where are the point men? Where are the people standing up and saying, you know, you are better than you are right now, and I see you. You know, we didn't see those guys. We didn't see a lot of them. We saw a lot of educators, as I call them. We saw a lot of what do you call them? I call them expounders. They expound on the Word of God. That's nice. It's educational, but it's not motivational.
Yeah, this makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is really making my mind kind of really think about. I mean, I'm not. I say these things, but I'm not saying that I do them frequently. I do see in some people where they can be, to the extent that I am going out of my way to make sure to try to get them and place them in that position, or to help move them up. I probably am not doing it enough, but I definitely know, because again, the main topic we're talking about here is about service to others. That's what we're talking about here.
Yeah. And
the truth is like, this is just an example of something that you can do for somebody else, which is like literally having if you were to have a company or any kind of organization, whether it's a church or not, you could have a faux ideal idea of a position, nameless, faceless, and then whoever comes in the door, you try to fit them in that, raise them up to that higher thing. And that alone can be a service to a person. And will add value, because again, no one in their life is actually doing that. Most people in their normal life, they see somebody who they are and who they were, insert, aren't you the son of the carpenter, right? That's who they know. That's what makes it familiar, and that's where people kind of hang out. And they never, and especially the closer the people are to you, which is kind of the whole point of that whole section. The closer they are to you, the more that they're going to latch on to your identity as being whatever it has been in the past.
Just to give you a little history of Israel and the Hebrews and their journeys from day one to now, the nation of Israel, the people of that big crowd that walked around the land here and there and everywhere, they had in a way, they had a God that gave them all kinds of things happen to them. Flood, to water out of the rock, to prophets going around giving the word of the Lord. They had an open vision. I said this before, but for 400 years, they had total silence, no open vision, I can't even imagine it, but they had nothing for 400 years, nothing.
Yeah.
And then Jesus comes to the temple, and he says, today this Scripture is opened up and is the fulfillment of this right now, and speaks on Isaiah 61. I have come to set the captives free. I'm anointed to preach the gospel. He gives that word, and anybody that was there heard and went, "Oh my goodness! Now this is the 400 years is over. God is speaking," and they knew it was Him speaking. God, not only God's word, but for the first time in 400 years, someone finally came and gave some open vision. Now, the reason why I say that is the next verse is what you touched on, is people want familiarity. So they walk in, whether it was scribes, Pharisees, or whoever it was, maybe some Jews that just didn't know any better, said, "Isn't this Joseph's son? Isn't this Mary's kid?" And so they had to bring him, the great Son of God, opened up the world again to the words of the Lord, to God's very word. In fact, God's very word personified, because that's who Christ was. And they're trying to bring it down to the familiar. Isn't this Joe's son? And Jesus said, a prophet's not without honor, except in his hometown.
Yeah, that's right.
And so we love to have the familiar because we're not bothered, if I can say it that way. Sometimes we used to herd cows in to get milked, and we had these cattle prods, that would hit them in the rear end and get them moving, because they didn't care. They didn't want to do that. They were just unmotivated. But it's like a prod. Sometimes someone needs to go zap you in the butt and get you going again. These are people. These are point men. There are a few out there that say, "Hey, look, you've heard it said this, but I say to you," Jesus said this a lot, "you heard this, but I say to you, because I got the word of the Lord. I got the new thing for you, and you need to catch it. I see you as complete. I did the finished work. I see you in that." Now, that takes a lot of faith, a lot more faith than we're used to, because even Jesus had faith about us and in us to become or be at a certain place. And that was sonship. And nobody told us about sonship. We didn't know about that. But that was the big promise, that I will be a father to you and you will be my sons and daughters. That was the main promise when Jesus came. That was the main promise, and he fulfilled it. And so what I'm trying to say is, some servant came and served us. If he'd have come down and said, "I'm the Lord and you better do what I tell you. I got the scepter in my hand. I'm going to whack you." Everybody went, "Oh, great, now another one. Hitler, whatever." And so nobody's going to be looking for that.
Well, it's funny.
But a servant, they will come to.
Well, it's funny because to that point, it was something definitively different, and it's not, again, the sermon yesterday. It's not a normal thing. It's not an easy thing, and I guess depending on the time, you're going to find that in a lot of lacking, and that's where we're at now. We are absolutely in that lacking of it.
Yeah.
There's definitely people. We live in the age, from what I kind of see, the way people currently are, is a lot of people, they will do good things, but they do the good things for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
What that ends up happening is they end up not going far enough. They don't maybe go wide enough. They won't really do the thing that they need to do because they have the wrong starting place. And so they might be kind of going that way. And I think that's a cultural thing, right? So you go to a job, there's like corporate cultures and this understanding of the way you're generally supposed to be.
Some of it is, yeah.
So you're supposed to be like nice, and so that's why a lot of people believe that like wokeness has made it everywhere in all these companies, is because people are like, well, when you're in a company, you're supposed to just kind of like get along with people. And that's what most of the people believe. But that's not serving people. That's doing this thing that kind of looks like it is, but it's very much not.
Well, that's why I say I think I started out talking to you about this too. Is that I don't know how else to say it other than, where are these people, these leaders that jar us and encourage us and help us? Rather than just be, I'm the leader, I'm the pastor, I'm the man, and it's, if you want to be one of them, go ahead, knock yourself out. But if you're listening to us, we're not saying that's the way to go, because we're saying we have a lack of leadership, because a true leader is a servant leader, and he is laying down his life for the sheep. In that sense, if he's just self-motivated in his own agenda, we can pick them up real fast.
Yeah.
But it's unique that Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. That was really cool. If you get with the right person, the people don't go, I'm leaving. They say, no, I can hear this guy. I receive what he's saying. I catch it. You don't get them quickly branching off. And you just don't. It's interesting. I did a little study on Jim Jones, and all these people, 1,000 people follow Jim Jones. What's interesting is they began to say, this guy, we're all here in Guyana, and he's saying this and that, and he sounds really arrogant. And they began to wake up, and they had to keep him there with guns. You're not leaving. So he had to get his army of guards to keep them there, because sooner or later, if they're not interested in you and you're not interested in them, and they don't feel treated right, they're going to leave. And if you don't have guns keeping them from leaving, you lost the sheep.
Yeah.
And so it's the same with leaders in a sense. There's no guns and everything. But why is so many people church hopping and all over the place? Because they're looking for a vision, something, and a visionary. I believe that's the difference. Is a visionary makes the difference, because like Jesus said, you heard it said, and that word in the Greek means it's commonly said that this. Well, we're not talking about commonly said. Like I said, we got too many fake leaders. We got 40 fake leaders and one visionary, and that's why he picks up a lot of people, because that's what they're looking for, or they're so lulled to sleep that they when a visionary comes, they can't see it. And that's part of the devil's work is mix it all up and keep it. There's a lot of scriptures against mixture, and if you keep mixing it all up and pouring 40 guys that are the same way, Jesus said, what's common out there is this kind of word, but I say to you, I'm the new guy. I'm saying a whole new thing. And they began, even John the Baptist, he was just talking about repentance, but he was so unique and visionary.
Yeah.
They were like, wow, we never heard a guy like this. We're going with that. And this is the lack that we have, I think, that we don't have those guys that got some vision.
Well, I think to you were saying like people being lulled, the person, this proverbial visionary, if they are an actual leader, they would actually go out and shake those people, because they're going to do what is necessary in order to reach those people. And so in the case of being lulled, that sounds like, or kind of, they're kind of asleep. That sounds like they have probably listened to a lot of different people over a long period of time. Yeah. And it's been more or less nothing from that. And so, ergo, in order to reach that person, you got to do something fundamentally different.
Yeah, and you just said something really crucial there. The natural leaders. I'm not talking about natural leaders. I know a lot of natural leaders. They're just natural, but they're not supernatural. They can teach what they're talking about, but you got to catch the vision. Yeah. You got to catch it. And these people are teachers. You have many teachers. Jesus said you have many leaders, but not many fathers. And so we could get into that a little bit too.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense too.
A leader has got to be some kind of father.
I would agree.
Fathering something rather than just educating.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, to me, I have a lot of my own internal struggles on some of this stuff of like where to put my energies towards something. Yeah. And the reasons are like, I like the idea of doing that or this or that. But for me, a lot of it is like, what am I going to get at the end of that rainbow? What am I going to get? And I don't mean like me, I mean towards what result is actually going to come from these? And a lot of them, I'm like, I'm not really convinced that I'm going to do anything other than like, for example, like you're saying, like just teach. I'm not interested in teaching. I would only do that as a tool to help like somebody with that kind of stuff, because part of changing somebody's actions, behaviors, and beliefs is you definitely have to teach them something. Teaching is a crucial part of it, but just stopping at, okay, well, I've got a school and I'm teaching people, you have no impact. There's no actual impact. And what you said there about fathering, that actually makes a lot of sense to me because you're trying to get that vision to come into existence. Well, you have to father that into existence. It's actually the right way to describe it. It's actually a good way to put it. Because what you won't do, right? So people have commented about how I raise my kids, and I don't try to make any big deal about it because I'm more busy doing that and other things. But just to bring up a couple things that I know that people have caught notice of is I don't just let my kids do things and so just adopt some belief and then just move on. And I don't just lord over them about it. I will get to their level or whatever. And if they seem like they're kind of drifting away in attention, I will completely change the situation so that that's not happening. And the reason is because I want the impact. I don't care about my voice being just heard by ears. That's just irrelevant to me.
Well, again, you're talking about your kids. You're fathering them.
Yes, that's right.
And people, I mean, one of the things that he said was preach the gospel to the poor and to care for the fatherless and the widow. The fatherless? And there are so many people that are fatherless. Yeah, when they get a father, they go, oh, man, finally, a dad, and father really means progenitor. I mean, that's the meaning of it. A father is generating and bringing up something good and new for me because he cares about me. You're not just, but you're also being a dad. You got to graduate from father to dad, And so, I mean, I've got a step.
Wait a minute. There's something I lost there. What are you talking about, father and dad? What are you talking about?
Well, I'll give you an example. I came into this second marriage with Ginny, and she had some kids. And I had to win them over to become their dad. They lost their dad. Their dad died. Yeah. How am I going to? And so I undertook as a father to them until they started calling me dad. And even his family come up to her and said, no, your dad is this guy that used to be. Well, he was just a biological father. He really didn't spend time. He didn't care. He didn't have that ability. And he just didn't have it, and he didn't have it as an example with his own family. But I became their dad. I gave him a car. I became their dad, and I dadded them, if you want to say this. I just became a dad. I was more than a father. They had a father, but they didn't have a dad. And then when I became dad, they asked me to adopt them. I didn't understand that either, to be honest with you. I never did this before. Yeah. Be a stepdad. But I was dadding them, and they were responding. And that made a difference because now, like Liz, Liz, She calls me dad. I'm the grandpa of your kids. And that's the end of the story. There's nobody going to talk about that or make a change of that. It's the way it is because I was a dad to them. And I became, to some degree, not their leader. We're talking about leadership, but because I'm a dad, they could hear the message. Dad said this. End of story. Dad said this, that's the end of the story. Now, some stranger could come in and say, yeah, but this or this or this, and they would say, no. Dad said this. It's really hard to break that relational thing if you have it by some guy walking in here and talking to the sheep out of blue. She just said, the sheep know my voice. And that's what he meant. They know me, I know them.
I mean, again, to use that analogy, I mean, if you were to go out with like a flock of sheep and the shepherd and some strange or some different entities trying to get them to go towards them, they're just not going to do that.
Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
Not going to do that.
Yeah. And that's what we're talking about.
It's funny. I mean, my confusion on this is my understanding of the word dad versus father, because I had always considered, from my perspective, that a father would be higher than a dad.
Well, but, in a way, I mean,
a person who is doing fathering, whereas I think we're, it's just like the colloquial use. I swear I've heard kind of recently about like, oh, I have a dad, but I don't have a father. I could see that, but I get
you can do it that way.
I get the essence. So what you're really bringing up there is, you were doing shepherding and you were nurturing, and that eventually led to a kind of a supreme relationship and like a deep connection that comes from that kind of thing. So they have trust in what you say is good for them, and that they're willing to listen to that, which oftentimes is the hardest thing when somebody's like telling you what is good for you or this or that. And you may hear what they say. You may even sort of believe what they say, but then actually like really adopt what they say. That takes a different kind of level of relationship.
Yeah. And there's a scripture in Romans and Corinthians that talks about this by the spirit of adoption. The father, creator, progenitor, the father. It's like that guy in the tribe of in Kenya. He says, I have 18 wives and 120 kids. He fathered a bunch. So he may be a father. He's not a dad to any of them.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They don't know him as dad. They don't call him dad. Maybe once in a while somebody will say, that's my father. I think that's my father. Big deal. Big deal. With God, he created us, but we don't always know him until he has invaded us as a dad. In fact, the word says Abba. They will call him Abba, Father, Daddy, because the difference is a relationship of mutual love and care and respect, and it's you can't break that. Once that's solid.
I guess when I think of father, a father is not a sperm donor, which is what you just described there. That's that. I think a father as like a person who is going to be continually cultivating and continually investing. Dad. Okay, sure, a dad in this technical term, but just the nature of fathering is not because kind of pulling it back to just prior to this conversation when you started bringing this up, like fathering of a person. Yeah. If they do not have a father in their life, it becomes something that's there's such a void there, and leadership is the same thing. I could see the parallels between them. Yeah. And they're going to be told messages that they're not going to be told by their mother and the various institutions that are out there that are not some of which are just not that positive. Yeah. As in like you think you're here, you're actually here. Yeah. You should be up here, but you're here. That's not normally. That's not what a mom normally has. Like, you're always going to be at least here. Yeah. But that's not true because they can fall beneath that, and they end up creating this sense of guilt in their child.
Yeah. Mothers don't lose faith. They don't lose faith in you. They just don't.
There you go.
No, that's my boy. That's my girl. But there's another thing you just brought up that made me think of we talk about fathers fathering the people. Paul said you have many teachers, but not many fathers. There are very few. It's interesting that as a father, I think more importantly, as when I was called dad, that's very vivid to me because I had a broke relationship there in my first marriage, and we separated and moved on. But the kids knew me as dad. They said, I put dad as a little more closer than, But when one rejects you because of the situation and everything, well, yeah, he's my father, and I would hear this, but he's not my dad. Well, gee, how can he not be a father and not his dad? Because the relationship is not such where I have him in my heart as a dad. Mm. And there's no way you're going to be a dad if you just serve yourself and don't care about them. There's still that servant leadership, that servant element that's crucial. And so here we are, catch the vision and leadership and lack of leadership. We're actually a fatherless generation. God, we see that so thick now. They did a study in one prison, I don't know where it was out there, and 95 or 6% of the guys didn't have a father. I mean, they had a father somewhere, but they would say, statistically, who's your dad? Well, I don't have a dad. That's really what they were asking. And it dawned on some people, we have a fatherless generation. Well, we also have a visionless generation. That can't catch the vision and so we got a job to do as leaders, if you want to call it as leaders, to become dads, to become leaders, and to become visionary. I mean, what dad doesn't have some kind of plans for his kid, to some degree, cares about him, wants him to be a certain place, see him as this instead of this. That's powerful. It's a powerful thing. I never see them less than. I see them as greater than, and that they're going to be even greater than that. That's how I see the kids. I don't look at them and see where they are now. Goodness sakes, you can't do that. You have to have a little more vision than that. And so, as leaders, we've got to see them. I like what you said. See them, and that guy. Even though he was a natural leader in that sense, he saw them, we can make you a great person up here, but even though you're here, we don't talk about that. I want to help you get there. And so this is what we're talking about. You are this, you are that. That's what God did in Christ for us. He saw us as his sons.
It's about seeing their potential when they cannot see it themselves.
They can't see it. It's impossible for them to see it.
It's impossible. And the fact that and what's interesting is certainly in that position, right? When you're like the owner or like some sort of like C-suite person in the company, you're a big person in the company, and you're just an employee who's trying to come in, especially if you're young, you're much more impressionable that it must be the case that what they can see is better than what I can see.
Yeah.
They know something. I mean, this is that kind of natural reaction. And so they are providing a service to, that is a service to that person.
It is.
Of helping them see that, okay, you actually have this potential. And at the time, admittedly, I was pretty humble being in that thing because I'm like, I don't know if I should be here, but I want to be here. Yeah. But that, a lot of people don't understand. Like, I've seen so many arrogant employees that do not understand this. I'll never forget having some conversation with some people at this corporation where they did not understand that the person that you want to hire is not the person who is the best at that job. They're the person who is actually they're on the path to getting to that. You need that person who's going to rise up, because once they take these responsibilities, and some people aren't going to be able to make it. Some people are not going to be able to rise up because they've hit kind of their limit, but no one can actually know that until they've actually been in that position.
Yeah.
But more often than not, they can rise to that, and they will actually do a better job than a person who's already there.
Yeah.
So I've kind of heard this as like some advice for, people who are trying to get a job or something, that you should not apply for the job you were qualified for. You should apply for the job that is higher than the one that you want. So if you're normally a technician level 2, don't apply for a technician level 2 job. Go for a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
And you'd be very surprised that people are willing to hire you. Because for one, kind of dancing back to where I was trying to go here, I was actually very humble in that interview. I was like, I've done some things, but I don't know. And I'm like, hopefully there's going to be people that are going to like help me do this thing because I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And that works.
That helped you. Though.
And it definitely helped me. And certainly I could see that he was kind of feeding off that. And again, he's just like, oh yeah, you're going to do just fine at this. And so, again, he was talking about like, you have to puff them up. You have to kind of raise them up because they're coming in already at a disadvantage, because oftentimes if you're trying to get a job, And
I don't want to get into this subject, but a father, servant leader also has to correct, because, it says the father were sons and daughters of God, and the one whom he scourges, he loves those that he scourges. That's the scripture in Hebrews. Those that he loves, he scourges, because you're going this way or that way. That's not the good way. We got to straighten this out. Now, you might not like it, and you might tear down your wonderful thinking of Father and God and mess it all up. But later, it says, later it yields a peaceable fruit of righteousness.
Yeah.
Later, you're going to say, thank you, Dad.
I actually think we should go into this a little bit, because this is actually serving people. And I do believe that this is one of the number one things that is missing out there is correction. So
we're going to have to do that next time.
Well, we actually started like 10 minutes.
Oh, we got
that.
a little
time.
So,
we got a little bit of time.
Oh, okay. I didn't know.
No, we're not over.
I don't want
to go. This is why I mentioned earlier that the dad or the father is the person who says, you think you're here. You're actually here. So you got to cut that crap out, because
and we don't like to be put in our place, so to speak.
Correct. And I've mentioned this before. I will continue to mention it. I don't really take a lot of pride and joy in it. I don't like doing it whatsoever, but I will absolutely do it. And the strangeness for if you out there are watching this, you have any hesitations about doing this, it has happened to me so many times now where I've blown people away with the wrath of God, and 10 minutes later they come up to me super happy and joyful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I didn't totally destroy this whole situation. And in other words, like, there's like that element of respect, and there's there's those kinds of things going on. And because I think in our minds, we think that like, there's got to be a better way to do it. There's got to be like the nice way, which is always what's ever has been piped down people's mind, is that it's got to be like the super nice way. And, do it with lovingness. That's just nonsense. Like, the actual observable fact is that when you do this, now you have to have the understanding of the difference of like going into that where you're bending over the top into like being cruel, for example, where you're now trying to destroy that person, and it can move and start to slide into that. But even if you go a little over, it's still not that big a deal. The point gets made that would not have otherwise gotten like, why'd you raise your voice? Because you ain't getting it. That's why. and at the end of the day, like the truth is that, like, has come to me on those things, it was never going to get known unless it was done in at least that manner. So I'm just not going to be that upset about it. And when I get the kind of feedback where later on they're like more polite, they're doing the things they're supposed to do, they have a bit more joy, and they're better in line of where they're supposed to be, I go like, well, I guess it was worth it.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And one of the guys that was a father in the faith, not a physical dad, my physical dad, but a father in the spiritual speaking. I went to him one day looking for an encouraging word, and he told me, he said, "You're being rebellious. You're being." I said, and I thought to myself, "Rebellious? I'm not rebellious." And he started laughing at me, And I looked at him and I'm like,
This is a good
now
story.
he's no longer my dad. He's just a guy, and I'm going to kill him. Because now he ticked me off. And so after I left and I thought about that, I began to see this area where I was rebelling.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful to him that he said that. But I wasn't thankful then.
But I just love that you were trying to go there and get an encouraging word.
I was trying. I was looking. And we all do. We all look for some kind of.
You got to go to the mom for that.
Gotta go to the mom.
You gotta go to the nice comfy zone and get patted and petted. Which I mean,
but that's not our job.
I mean, sometimes, for example, the leader does need to do that, and that's when that time is there. And when it's not that time, it's not that time. And
poor you. But of course, it says too, for a moment, it's grievous. In Hebrews 12. For a moment is grievous. At that time of correction, you get ticked off. It aggravates you. But, my grandmother was big in this castor oil when we were sick. Give her castor oil. What a rejection we had. Everybody fought against it. But it actually did some good. Okay?
It's definitely going to get your body moving. That's what castor oil does.
Got things going but it ticked us off until we were out of it, and we could eat something and get rid of that horrible taste and feeling. But I remember that. But it was good. It was good. It was grievous, but So, part of life obviously is correction, and that correction. I used to have another teacher way back that said, when we die, we're going to go right away into the classroom called the classroom of corrections, and correct a few things that you're still messed up on a few things you need correcting on.
Yeah.
Because we'd never quite attain to this perfect model and all that kind of stuff.
I wonder if there. I'm kind of thinking about this. I wonder if it's the case that more often than not, people who are doing leadership, or they're in a leadership kind of role or whatever, if they are doing teaching when they should be doing correcting, and they should be doing teaching, like they should be, or rather they should be motivating when they're doing teaching, and they should be more correcting than they might normally do.
There's no question in my mind. There's no question. Not even a debate in my mind. This is.
And one more comment about it. I just realized I didn't say it quite how I wanted to say it. When the person needs to be taught, they need to be corrected, because that's when you learn, right? You learn when you get corrected, not when you're taught, right? That's a different thing. That's where you need to be, where you need to have motivation, where you're trying to create people to do certain kinds of actions or whatever. But if they're doing wrong actions and they need to be taught, they need to be corrected.
They need to be corrected. And that's why I say it's great you sit there with many teachers and they educate you and tell you about whatever various thing.
Yeah.
But they didn't tick you off enough to get you on the right track. And so a true leader, calls a spade at some point and says, look, you're going the wrong way, or you're doing the wrong thing. And how dare you tell me? Well, because I'm your dad. And they receive it and they move on, they grow. Or they reject it and they don't grow, and now we got to put up with them and deal with them. I mean, it all follows suit in growth and relationship. But we see that out there now. Everybody does what they want to do and no correction. But now you can't even, in school, I saw this movie where the kid was so bad and a bully and terrible. Well, we can't correct him. We just got to try to see him for what he is and deal with that. And can't correct him. I'm like, what planet are you on? Even the nature corrects itself.
Yeah.
Even certain things happen that correct the situation. They said,
well, you don't actually...
I remember just 20-some years ago, there's so much pollution on Earth. Earth is so fragile, we will never recover. We're already at that point, we'll never recover. And I'm saying, the Earth is not fragile. It's not a fragile thing. There's correction built into it, and that's good. We think it's terrible. That proves that it's got problem. No, it proves that it needs correction.
I mean, here's a perfect example. Your house floods because you live in a delta that has been paved over. That should be correcting people to understand that that ain't working. But I can definitely tell you, I mean, this is where I will say I have low faith in society at large, that they feel to me to be a herd jumping off a cliff. They're just running full speed because they absolutely refuse to understand or have any understanding of correction. And I just think of like literally every single place that floods, like people don't seem to understand this. It's at the bottom of where water flows, and it's supposed to be able to sink into the ground, but it can't because there's concrete. Period. Just full stop. That should tell you right there that entire model is incorrect.
Not working.
And that lesson is being taught again, and like no one listens. And part of the reason is because there's politics at bay. There's like insurance money at bay, and there's like all this sorts of stuff that keeps it in place. And as a result, people in their individual homes and individual lives, they're the ones that pay the cost, and they're just going to keep getting whacked. And my last sort of semi-political comment on this is where I think that we'll say the conservative economists get this right. If it's the case that breaking windows creates economy, then those places should have the best economy and the most amount of wealth and most amount of valuable ever, but they're not, because every single time like a hurricane comes through and it wipes all these places away, people become impoverished. Like, period. It continually makes people more and more impoverished. And it's because they are impoverished.
Yeah.
They are out of alignment with reality itself.
Right.
And they will pay that price until they change their ways.
Absolutely. And this is what breaks my heart and motivates me. And when I see that, when like in this whole general area, we are impoverished by things that God really wants to do in our lives and wants to do in the church, and the things that God wants to do, we are losing that. We're losing it, and it's a shame because it doesn't have to happen. It doesn't have to happen.
Oh, I didn't tell you. I should tell you this while we're here. That so I went to church while I was on vacation, and I went to like a non-denominational whatever church, and I got there and I was like, wow, this is like just like the church I go to. It's kind of funny. So of course, they do what you're calling the Baptist way. They do the singing and then they do the preaching.
Paradigm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Now, I will say, though, it was a little bit different because the preacher, it's like the preacher and his wife or whatever. They're like a duo kind of combo. And they said it actually in like their values on their website. And one of the things they believe in is speaking in tongues. So they said that's not a normal non-denominational church thing. It definitely isn't. And so definitely that lady was like, Caesaring on stage and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little different than our church.
Yeah. Well, sometimes here's another thing too: is there's a shock value that is important for people to. Sometimes people need to be shocked, and then the other day we were talking about somebody that wanted the baptism of the Holy Spirit and speaking. They wanted that, and so they heard this, they heard that, they heard this. They're sick of hearing all this stuff. How do I get there? I've never heard this before. It's shocking to me. I remember them saying that. This is shocking to me. Is this real? And
I see. Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? And it was interesting because the one that said the most was the one that said, my experience is I was shocked too. And so I decided to go after it and find if it was real. And then over a process of time, they came into it and enjoyed it, and it was real for them, blah, blah, blah. And I said to myself, it's interesting. That shock has caused them to seek.
Sure.
That shock, what? I never heard that. Caused them to go, I got to check this out. And I hope that that's true with many people.
You're definitely never going to go research or look after something unless you see or hear something that doesn't sound like it fits your model.
Yeah, you gotta. Sometimes that's the way we are.
You're not gonna look it up. Why would you look it up?
It's the way we are.
Now, many people certainly will just deny and kind of leave it at that. But then they might deny it and then go like, "Well, maybe I go look into something like that." But if you're not disturbed, so to say, moved off your kind of pedestal or whatever, you're not gonna look something up.
Yeah. So that's a factor. And here's another thing. You going on that thing and made me think of something. Last night I was thinking about the fact that the elder brother that stayed back on the farm with father, the prodigal son is here.
Yeah.
You didn't give me a ring, Dad. You didn't give me a rope. I was always here doing what you wanted me to do. He was an orphan as well. Here's how he was an orphan. He was being a good boy and big about obedience, but he didn't know the father.
Mm.
He didn't know him as a dad. That's the way I look at it. And so he said, you were always with me, son, and all I had was yours. You just had to enter into it. I was right here. This kid's coming humble, but you were the son that hung out, and the big thing for you is just do what you're supposed to do. And I'm going to tell you this. We could get into this next time. Orphans are big about obedience, but they don't know him.
Mm.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with casting out demons and speaking in tongues and healing, but nothing wrong with that. But Jesus said, some will come to him and say, Lord, I did this. I cast out demons. He said, I never knew you. He's talking about, you didn't get to know me. You obeyed, good, but obedience isn't everything. And well, I tell you, I got more texts on Facebook just in the last 2 days on these guys, I don't know if they're pastors or not, saying, you got to have obedience. You're the problem. You are in a deception. You're killing the fact that we must have obedience. Well, okay, but you can obey all day. I can obey my mom and dad 100% all day long and not know who they are.
Yeah, that's rule-oriented. This is just straight rules. Just obeying is trying to, we talked about this, I think, last time. It's just trying to hop into that safe space. That's what it is. That's I did.
It. Trying to hop into the safe place.
Again,
like
what that elder child is that you're talking about in the prodigal son, they played it safe. They didn't actually, they just said, well, as long as I kind of hang out here, kind of hang out in the shade, it's like, that's okay, but that's not excelling. That's not, whatever.
Well, the father said, you didn't know me. You didn't take advantage of who I am, and you're on my farm. You can do what you want to. Instead, well, I'll just be obedient and be here like I'm supposed to. And he missed the thing. And that's why he was upset with the fact that the father gave the robe, gave a ring, gave a feast, and he's saying, how dare you give that to him? Well, he isn't just about obedience. He's about humility. He's there willing to receive, and you are not. And that's why you missed it.
I love the prodigal son. The more I look at it, because a lot of people, it's funny, the prodigal son is about the son that went away. So people think if they just stay at that single level, that it's about that son and him coming back, which that is kind of the main message. But then there's this whole other message that's right there too for that person who's not the prodigal son, that you got your message there too.
Yep.
Which is...
Yep. So the whole parable is about the father. When you look at it, it's about the father's love. And he saw him coming from afar off, and he ran to him.
Yeah.
I mean, this is about the father saying, look, I'm here for you to know me if you want to.
Yeah.
And I got a whole big series on orphans and stuff. But orphans want obedience over relationship. Because obedience, like you said, is a safe place. And, I'm very obedient. And so the guy said, Jesus said, well, obey the commandments. He said, the rich young ruler said, I have from a youth up always obeyed.
Oh, yeah.
And he went away sad. He said, we'll sell everything and we'll see what we can do with that. Jesus knew how to father that guy, but that guy was not interested. And he went away sad. He was obedient up the yin-yang, but he went away sad.
Well, it's funny about that even, too, because agreed on obedient, but he clearly wasn't obedient on that last one.
Yeah. He wasn't, but he couldn't see that at this point now.
Yeah.
He's already beyond the...
Well, I guess we can wrap it up here on our talk on the importance of servants of leadership, and it's a pretty complex topic, which is why we kind of went into a bunch of different things. We're definitely interested in your comments. We'd love to hear from you guys.
Please do. Yeah.
We know you're watching out there. Last time we saw there was something like 80 views or something like that, and so people are out there viewing. I don't know if people are making it this far. because I think Facebook counts a view as like, 10 seconds or 20 seconds. So we got to like jump up, down, and go crazy in the first 20 seconds to maybe get people to keep going. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this, and maybe it kind of sparked you a little bit, kind of shocked you in the various areas where you might need to improve your servant nature. I'll say that sermon that was yesterday definitely kind of really got me going. Like, yeah, I think I need to spend a lot more time thinking about this. And I'm in the process of starting a new business and want to actually bake that into the business, like from the very beginning of the mindset of like how we go out and get business and stuff like that. So
make a comment.
Yep.
Help us out.
We want to see it.
We enjoy.
All right. Till next time. Bye.